Hey, what's up? This week's winners on a Wednesday, we have Christian Ribeiro. I met Christian, I've been friends with him for about 5 years now. When we met, he was a professional footballer, he's now retired, and has done a remarkable thing in property. He's built himself a portfolio, and it's just a real pleasure, after knowing him for 5 years, to have on the show my man Christian Ribeiro.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show, man.
Yeah.
So we've been, we go back a long way. Why don't you just kick off and just give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, well, basically I was born in Swansea, came across when I was about 7 or 8 years old into Gloucestershire, and I joined Bristol City's academy when I was about 9, 10 years old. Came through all of that, and in football by age 16 you then go into youth team level, so you go away from school, you go into full time, and at that point at that stage I was probably sort of the next best thing in Bristol at the time. I was getting big opportunities.
Yeah,
and
really well known.
Yeah, I was sort of pushed to the first team at ages sort of 16 and a half, 17, so really early. And I thought, oh, this is easy, you know, I could just do it. I didn't worry too much about anything else. I just, every step that was given in front of me, I could just go on and do it. And over time, things were getting better and better for me. I started stepping close to the first team. I had opportunities to go to sort of Premiership clubs and things at 18 for like £1 million, which back then was a lot of money. That was 10 years ago now, so that was a lot. And I was playing for Wales under 21s at 17.
You played for Wales.
And I was doing, yeah, I did later on. This is at the younger age where I was sort of 17 playing for the under 21s. So I was doing, that was probably when I was at my peak of potential. And then when I was 18, I made my debut at Bristol City, who were championship level, which was really good then.
Yeah.
And I did my knee, 20 minutes in, out of nowhere, just twisted following a player, and I did my ACL, really badly damaged my cartilage, and I was out for a year. And to be honest, after that I was never the same again. And I still managed to have a career. I played 10 more years. I managed to play for Wales internationally when I was 20 and things, but I was deteriorating over time, and I wasn't rehabbed very well, and I was a very athletic player, so once I lost some of that in my knee, my career never reached the same level that I wanted it to.
I'm going to talk to you more a bit about football and a bit about what happened to that. You read a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is like the book that often brings people into the world of investments. Then what happened?
Well, I think I started getting into that sort of self-development side when I knew I could see my career was coming to an end. I wasn't going to achieve what I wanted to, and like I said, I need to look further ahead, and that was one of the first books I read, going on to self-development, all of this side, and straight away, like a lot of people say, it's like a light bulb going on. I thought, right, this is something I've got to get into or get involved. And at the time, I bought my first property at 19, and I had some success with that through some capital growth in Bristol. So I already had some knowledge and experience and some money back from that, and I thought, well, I'm already rolling in this direction, why don't I go a bit further?
So you bought a house when you were 19, and then you saw that shot up in value, and now you're thinking, I've got a dodgy knee, I've made money in property, that's gone really well, I need to learn how to do that, and that's kind of what happened.
I think a lot of people start in property accidentally, don't they? They have to live somewhere, etc. So when I was 19, I was on a really good contract, and I bought a 2-bed apartment in the centre of Bristol that was really lovely location. Bristol's a brilliant city, you know, great place, and it's growing all the time. So I bought there thinking, I know my money's safe, and I love living here. I was working 5 minutes down the road, Bristol City football ground, so I was like, great place. But then in 5, 6 years, it went up like 100 grand.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't expect that at the time, and I didn't know what I was doing as such. I was just living there. I knew it was a good idea, but that then just triggered in brains. Look, if you follow the right fundamentals, being in good areas, good properties, look what can happen. You know.
And that's awesome. And I'll tell you something. You, little secret, were, I believe, attended my very first property investors crash course.
I think it's mad, isn't it, when you look back?
5 years.
Yeah, incredible. But that's when I started to take it more seriously. I started to look into truly what I wanted to achieve in property and what you can achieve. And I think back then when I was there, I bought a couple of places in Bristol before then that was more, I liked Bristol, I had money from footballs, I was on a good contract, well, I'll just park it. And that's the beautiful thing of property, how forgiving it is, that even if you're not deemed an expert on it, it's still, those have done really well for me over time, and now effectively all my money's pulled out of them and I'm using it for others. But I did that without knowing at the time. I just did it knowing, great place to be, I love the air, I know other people over time love to live there, and it's been really forgiving.
But the thing is though, you were smart enough, even though you didn't know exactly what you were doing, you bought a property at 19. A lot of footballers, they're not even thinking about this. No. So and I know now you're really passionate, and one of the reasons you've come on the show is because you're really passionate about helping and inspiring other sports people and saying, look, you're making really good money now, but that's not going to last forever, right?
No, exactly, and I think part of the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I'm the biggest case study, you know, I know of going through it, where I had that opportunity of being what I consider a Premiership player or having a brilliant career. I didn't achieve that through injury, and over time my career was deteriorating. I was retired by 27. You know, I'm just turned 20, I'm 29 now, and I was retired early, and I was on a good wage, but I wasn't on a crazy wage where I could never have to work again. Luckily, I built up, you know, a modest portfolio over time, and I learned how to do other bits, now running into some other business. But lots of people don't have that. They don't think that until it's too late. And so many stories, you know, I don't need to go into the amount of you hear of the bankruptcies and all of this, and people I know that have got big mortgages that if they were dropped from their club and they didn't have a team for next year, they wouldn't be able to afford their mortgage. They're on £5 a month mortgages and things like that. It's incredible. And what people don't realise, but it is coming to the fore now, is the stats for people retiring from sport are incredible. I think depression is 3 times more likely in sportsmen to the national average. Bankruptcy, more than 40% of them are bankrupt in the first 5 years. That's incredible. I think divorce is something like a third of them are divorced in the first 12 months, 75% in the first 3 years. These are incredible stats. They're glossed over because people...
Why do you think that more professional footballers and generally just sports people, why do you think that more of them don't invest well into property?
Well, I think you'll understand this, Sam, from people who meet. When people earn more money, doesn't necessarily mean they're smart with it. You find that expenses go up with income. That's how a lot of people live. So the fact someone's earning, I know, £4 a month to earning 100 grand a month, 200 grand, some of these guys earning crazy monies, but they just spend it. You know, they live in their life. Yes, they'll probably have some input, but you feel invincible when you're playing.
But surely you know, when you're a footballer and you're making really good money, you know it's not going to last forever.
You say that, but you know, I experienced it as well. I was lucky to some extent that I had a major injury very young, so I had that sort of...
That's interesting that you say. You just said, I'm lucky that I had an injury very early on. That's a very positive mindset.
The negative is, at 27 I was told I'll never run again, all this other stuff. So I've got, you know, serious issue. But from that side of it is, the mentality was, then I thought I was invincible. I was just going to make it, I was going to be, you know, I'd never have to work again. Suddenly, going back down to earth grounded me a little bit, and some people, they don't actually get that until they retire. That's when it's tough.
But now what you're saying is, you shouldn't have to be injured to realise that you need to start investing.
And some people, some are more receptive to it than others, and you have to remember as well, in football compared to sport like rugby, footballers generally, they come from low income backgrounds, they're not as well educated generally, so when they come into monies, they're not educated how to spend monies. Nowadays there's guys like agents and financial advisors that will literally control what the player earns almost, as in the money's coming in, they say no, you can't have that, that's going over here because that's what you spend. Because the lads, they just focus on football. They're one thing, football, 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 and that's great, and because they want to achieve their goals in it, that's all they've ever wanted to achieve. But when things start going wrong, and you'll find quickly in sport, it's very fickle. You know, when you're out, nobody cares about you. Nobody looked after me when I was retired, and I didn't get any insurance payout, any of that stuff. So when I retired, that was me, done. 27, what I built my whole life towards, I have to start a new journey. Just like that. There's no one out there really, when they finish a job, they've still got those skills to be able to take elsewhere. When you're a footballer, you haven't got any more skills, you know, that's me gone. I can coach football, that's about it.
What advice would you give to somebody who was a footballer, or someone who's in a potentially short-term career, because any career is short-term, if you're not getting passive income, what advice would you give to them to how to get started?
You have to start. Everyone talks about education, and there's so many resources out there and people that are really inspirational that you can go out and learn. You know, we're using property as a vehicle that we love, and I personally think it's the best vehicle out there to create that financial freedom, or that opportunity to increase your value, your wealth, etc. But you know, they've just got to start, and it starts from one step, doesn't it? The first book you read, it's not like you're going to be an expert overnight. Nobody is, but these guys do have potential to have wonderful, you know, safety cushions at the end of their career and things. They're almost, you know, if they've got 10 years after they retire, what a fantastic position to be in. Build that portfolio, build those other skill sets you have, so when you retire at 35, you're already moving. You're not stood still when suddenly your income's going boom. They actually can soften the blow of that and work their way into other things.
You're very steady in your approach. Like, I know I mentored you for a year in property, for the year of 2015. And you're very steady in your approach, but over the 5 years, you've now got and you still say, I'm still in my early days, you still say that, but you've grown something pretty remarkable. Are you full-time in property?
Yeah. So we now, basically, from that, I wanted to build something that would help these sportsmen whilst, you know, achieve my own goals as well. Like I mentioned to you before, when you retire at 27, I'm not finished, I want to do something else now. I feel like my career didn't achieve what I wanted to, so now I want to achieve in another aspect, and I can help those in my community that I know nobody gave me the help, so I want to help those give better, and then for myself as well, build something for myself. Basically, I have a business partner now. We're based up towards Manchester, where we have the bespoke portfolio building service for sportsmen and one or two others, whilst we're doing our own stuff as well. So now that's what we're growing at the minute.
What's an average day then for you? What does an average day look like today?
Well, normally I'm spending most of my time up north now. You know, I live down Cheltenham way, so I'm used to it all my life. I've been travelling, so now I spend a lot of time at Manchester way, and a lot of it is, as you know, people who do really well in property, they take action, don't they? So days will be calling agents, it'll be viewings, it'll be solicitors, brokers, because our model we have is we have an end-to-end conveyor belt almost, where we have the brokers, solicitors, tax accountants to get people ready to buy, then we have all the agents, etc., to help us find the deals that work, then we have the contractors to do the refurbishment, we own our own letting agency to let out at the end, so there's a lot of moving parts in there. And
you do that because firstly it helps you, because you need the people in the team, but then if other people can tap into it as well.
Well, that's it. It creates, you know, what we've got. There's lots of messages in there, but we're trying to create this hands-free system that's going to give you really great returns, long-term, etc. But you're getting high quality through it all, because these people we've handpicked over time through experience. I think between me and my business partner, we own over 60 houses, so we know what we're talking about. And when we pick the strategies, etc., we're able to go back over 10 years of performance in portfolio to say these types of houses work best, not the ones in the poor areas that we got really cheap. They haven't gone up in capital value in 10 years. No, go to the better areas, spend a little bit more here, because they went up 80, 100 grand over 10 years, not 10 grand. That's where you make your life-changing amounts of money, and that message you can only get when you've got experience, and experience, you know, it's invaluable to have that.
It's interesting because I know you've dabbled in lots of different types of approach. I know you've done HMOs, you've done single lets, you've bought up north, you've bought down south, and you've now got a strategy that suits you, that works for your goals.
And I think a lot of it, a lot of it is goal orientated, and you have to think, when you go through the experience, we wanted to build something that not only can give you really good returns, but you want downside protection of it. You want to make sure that for someone like the sportsman, if they're building a portfolio, they don't want to have to be going in every 2 or 3 years and sorting issues out. They want something that's smooth, gives you consistent income, because they're going to rely on it later.
Exactly. They're
going to rely, and so we're looking at the different strategies and think, no, I think what we believe in is adding value to properties. We love the single let model because, one, they're fantastic wealth builders from capital growth. You get the opportunity to add value to them, you know, by buying tired things that we'll do really good jobs on and create equity. And what a way to build a portfolio where they're almost like the foundation of everyone's portfolio. They give you consistent income, you get that capital growth, and over time, you just compound it, don't you? Buying great areas, buying areas that you can see are growing. And when you're doing it full time, we are on the ground, we know which areas are going up, we know where there's big family demand, where there's good schools, all this. When you follow those, you find that that's where you can really do some great things.
So what are you buying right now?
So we now are doing a number of things. So we've got guys for the sportsmen that we're basically doing this whole portfolio building service for. So we're generally buying tired properties at a discount, then we do really brilliant refurbs, and then we, to be honest, the guys sometimes will refinance quickly, sometimes won't, because those guys don't need the money today. So what they're trying to build is really pots of, you know, wealth over, they'll come and realise in 10 years. So there's a mixed bag there, some refinance, some don't.
You know, sometimes people are looking to just get a really high return. Sometimes other people are looking for a longer...
Exactly, and I think that's something, everyone is different, and sometimes you don't want to leverage yourself up to the eyeballs. You want to be able to know that, no, I've got equity sat in there, and if you spend 10 grand a refurb, I want to add 20, 30 grand of value. You know, that's still your money, it's in the property, you haven't lost it, it's there. And that's the beauty of finding things, doing a great job in the design that we do in the contract. So we do it still on a good budget, because it has to be on a right budget, but you can add so much value. And when you create these lovely houses for people in good solid areas, you find that the demand just going up and up and up. And we've just tried to combine that with fundamentals of why do we pick these certain areas. So we go to Manchester because Manchester is having one of the most biggest investment cities in the country. You know, so much is pooling into Manchester, and then we're looking, well, what areas have great transport links, great employment, near big, you know, if we're down in the south side where there's a bit more capital growth. So in Stockport we do a lot of our stuff. Now, weirdly, I was on loan at Stockport when I was 18 years old, and back then that was 10 odd years ago, and it was, you know, a bit dreary, not so good. Now there's a plan to spend over £1 billion in regeneration over the next 5 years. They've got the Manchester airport's having over £1 billion in terminals, you know, all the changes there, which is 5 minutes down the road, 10 minutes into centre Manchester, 2 hours direct to London. People don't know about all these things combined. Think, what a great place to be for the next 5-10 years. And I didn't know that years ago, and most people don't, because they only look at the top line stuff. When you start delving deeper, you can start to see why people who are doing it full time, they have the time to look and go into here, you'll be really happy you did in 5-10 years, you know. And that's the levels that people have to think about, I think, when they start committing to tens of thousands of pounds.
What are your thoughts on things like the economy right now, Brexit and 2019?
Well, to me, I always believe, and you know, I've heard from yourself from others, that in property you buy and hold. You know, there's never a better time to buy in property, in my opinion, than today. There's still opportunities today than there will be. If a market dipped 20% and you think, oh, great bargains, there's still opportunities today to add value and to create things. Because you're still buying in areas that people need homes. They need great quality homes. So there's always opportunities out there. I actually think that once this settles, this breaks up, whichever way we go with it, it settles, I actually think there'll be more of a springboard rather than a dip so much. It's, I think people like security. When things settle and go, right, we're going this way, I think you'll find that things will pick up a little bit again. But the way we think of it is, well, how can we protect against any downside? Well, add value, so you've always got good equity and stuff, and you've got the cash flow, because things cash flow, so you never need to sell because of cash flow issues. Well, then you can withstand anything. You're building this bulletproof portfolio in essence, which that's what everyone wants, don't they?
Yeah.
Then you get
so what would be your message? You were the first footballer I ever worked with. So I remember when you came on, I was like, yeah, I've got a, you know, it was a really cool, it was a really cool thing. I've now worked with a lot of footballers. You work with sports people. What would be your message in a few words to say to these sports people that haven't thought about investing, or what would be your message as to why they should educate themselves and why should they?
I think you've got to start educating yourself, and you know, you're going to learn. Everything is about learning stages. I would never say jump in 2 foot into something that you don't know. Learn, you know, research from people, from strategies, but you've got to get going as well. There's so many people I know, and they just don't take action, you know. And I think, like we spoke about before, the people who do really well, they're always taking action. And so I know guys I played with 2 years ago, and they're interested in property, and I'll call them and talk about it and say, oh, how are you getting on? Have you got anything? It's like, no, I haven't got anything. I'm like, you missed 2 years of capital growth and cash flow, etc. Well, and these people that you've got your money sat in banks, and yes, okay, you can have your cash ice and things, all right, fine, but it's not that exciting, to be honest with you, stuff like that. And whilst you're not spending it, it's losing its buying power. And you know, you could put it into you could close your eyes and buy something in a estate agency and you'll do all right over time. You know, you're going to do all right. So turn that onto somebody who really is looking for the extra 1% here and there. That's where you make your real monies and your real growth. So sometimes it's about, just take action. Look, I started off as an accidental landlord by just buying, living, and it's ended up doing me pretty well. So just, you've got to take action with it.
What did you think of the crash course when you came?
Yeah, well, when I came then, I was very much starting out, so everything was still relatively new, and you could see all the excitement of people, and I was just starting out then, so I was starting to build my portfolio and things. So it just opened your eyes to the amount of opportunities that are out there, but you still got to work for them. You know, it's about those opportunities are there, you still got to chase after them and work really hard. So it's nice to see those. I think over time, you see the ones who are still going. 5 years later, you can cherry pick, 8 out of 10 of them aren't still going. Those 2, why are they still going? Because they kept doing those actions. They kept going. They kept going, and they had some really good values in their fundamentals that meant that 5 years later, look for yourself. Look at how you've exploded your growth, and I can use that as well to see the other people who were doing smaller things and they're not doing so much now.
So you say that you're a superb case study. Your football career. Talk to me about that.
So basically, the reason I'm so passionate about helping the sports was when I look back at my case study, and we talked about some of the things that footballers go through when I retired. I went for an insurance claim for the PFA, which probably, I don't mind talking, it would probably be something like 20, 30, 40,000, something like that. And I was rejected. They said no, they said it was wear and tear on my knee. They wouldn't, even though I had a good case for why it wasn't, they wouldn't look at it. So I went from a well-paid job, suddenly I had 6 months wages, because I retired mid-season. So I had 6 months where they had to honour another contract, and that was it. That was my football career over. And in that time, me and my partner split up, just like we talked about all this divorce and all this stuff. My long-term partner split at the time. So I went through all these emotions. Luckily, I had amazing family and friends, so I never went through that depression side of it. But certainly, my life was turned upside down. You know, I went from being a pro footballer, living in Cheltenham, enjoying life, you know, never worrying about money. So suddenly, everything's changed. My whole life has changed. So then, when I looked at who was there to help me, only my family and friends really. All the other institutions out there that around the sportsman, nobody helped me, to be honest with you. And it was lucky that I invested when I did when I was younger, because that softened the blow for me. Suddenly I wasn't on £0. I had other investments that were paying me monies, and I had other equities and things. That's what saved me. And I look back now and think that I was so lucky that I think of that as almost lucky that I was thinking about later on, earlier on in my career.
That's fantastic.
And so now when I talk to players, look, I've lived it. I've lived going through retirement early. I've lived through the negative sides of it, the divorce side of it, all this stuff. I've lived it. I understand what it's like. I've been through it. I'm telling you, this is where you want to be thinking, because this will soften that for you. And it's always going to be hard to go through that, but this is about how to make it as best you can for yourself and your family.
Fantastic. Well, I've really loved seeing your progress over the last 5 years, and I'm really honoured to have been able to serve in some way. And it's great to have a friendship. How are your houses doing in Wolverhampton?
Yeah, so now I had some that were house shares before, and I think again we talked about owning houses for over 10 years, so I could see the good and bad of everything. What things that went well, things went. So when I owned those, I had them as a house share at the time, 4-bed, and they went really well for a year. I thought, great, this is easy, as I did in that sort of naivety when you think everything's easy. Then you start to have a few issues. You start to have a void period, then a tenant issue or a bit of damage, a bit of maintenance. Quickly, you start to realise, hang on, these aren't performing as they should. So now I actually turned it around, put them back to single lets and said, no, I want the consistency of having X amount per month that I don't have to worry too much about. I still get the capital growth and I can rely on that.
That's interesting. It's really interesting, because so you'd rather make £300–400 consistently rather than £700–800, but then you've got a big problem, a bad tenant.
Exactly, and what you find is with a lot of those, the reality is when you put in your cost and your maintenance, you find that one void can knock you down to less than single let levels, and 2 voids, suddenly you're losing money, all that. So I experienced that, and I sort of came to a decision, well, in my time in my life, and I didn't want to manage them full time myself, they were distant from me. So I was like, do you know what, I just want to earn a steady amount that I can rely on. I know they're good houses, I tidy them up, they're nice houses, and just think, no, I'm just going to sit on them now. I'm going to let the capital growth over time earn me, you know, the...
How are they doing on a capital growth point of view?
So I'd say they've gone up over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 15–20 grand. Nothing spectacular.
It's all right though.
But what we found now is the ones that we're doing in different areas for different reasons, they're going up. That's, you know, 10, 20, 30 grand in a year, because we're in the right areas. We know the spots. So now we're in Stockport mainly, and some surrounding areas. So so some of those areas around there in Manchester, we're having really big growth and really big demand. So we're finding in our projects, we're breaking market values and breaking market rents, because we do a lovely we do a lot of really nice refurbs. Me and my business partner are really diligent on getting the most for our monies and doing lovely standard, and people pay for that in the nicest way. They want to live in nice homes, so they'll rent an extra £100 over the market value. And when we just did our first flip, and it sold on first viewing. We had it, I think we put it on the Wednesday. On the Saturday was an open day, and all these people came, and we had all these offers, and it went for 20 grand over asking price.
And you made like 60 grand gross on it?
Well, no, so that one, we bought it for 120 and sold for 180 within 3 months of each other. So it was really quick, and I don't know what we'd profit on it, something halfway between that, something like that, because there's fees and things.
Especially in this market of uncertainty, the fact that you're able to sell.
Well, and the reason we were able to is because we know the areas. I know this was a really hot area because of my relationships with agents.
The great thing is about you though now is before you were kind of dabbling with property, you were focused on your football career. Your football career was really bright at one point when that ended, but now you've got a really bright property career. And you're killing it.
Yeah, well, we're doing all right, and we're killing it. And we're doing more and more.
What's your vision then for say 5 years? Where do you really want to be?
Well, I think in everything in property, our aim is the proof's in the pudding. We still buy properties like we're doing now. We're on 3 or 4 of our own sites, so we are doing the same as what we're doing for sportsmen. So when they say, you're doing it for them, we're building our own portfolio as well. We're buying in the street next to you and all of that stuff. So we're doing the same thing. So we just want to keep building our own legacy of portfolios and getting better and better. Over time, we might change strategies a little bit and maybe go for apartment block and bits and bobs like that, but at the minute we decided to be laser focused and go for one strategy, and off that we do the flips and bits off it, but it's the same strategy. We buy tired houses that we turn something really good, and generally the single let stuff, and let's do 20, 30 of those. Become an expert at that, become an expert in that field, and try and be almost, we're hoping to be the biggest buyer in that area. So when that type of deal comes on, as they're starting to do now, they call up and say, oh Chris, we've got another one's like you know, down the road, do you guys want it? That's what we want to get to, and you have to prove yourself to get there. It takes time to get to that point. What
do you think of some of the deals that we're doing at the moment?
Yeah, I know, it's incredible, isn't it? And it's really inspiring to see other bits. Sometimes as well, it can be a bit of a negative. You're thinking, oh, that's amazing, why can't I do that? But it drives you on to do more, doesn't it? And every deal has got strengths and weaknesses. So when you see someone do a rent or anything, that's brilliant. You know, for you, if you're going to manage that, you get the cash flow, but then you have your negative, you won't get your capital side of it. So everyone's got different goals, haven't they? So
everyone's got, you know what, there's no necessarily right, like you say, I prefer to buy in slightly more expensive areas for capital appreciation and for less of a headache. Other people say, well, I can get a similar-ish rent by. Everyone's got their own thing, and I think it's just about, and I said this to you when I first started mentoring you in 2015, I said, buy one or two, test it, buy, you know, because don't go crazy, buy one or two, test it, and then buy another, and you'll slowly develop your own strategy. You've now got your Christian Ribeiro strategy, which has taken 5-10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
To put together.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of having that experience. Combined, you know, my business partner, he's got 3 other businesses, so we've combined all that to say, no, this works. We've proven that it works, and now we're just tweaking it to get it better all the time and become experts in that area. So you're absolutely right. You just want to quietly build, and when we speak to the sports guys and we're working with them, some of them are Premiership, Championship, etc., and they might have hundreds of thousands in the bank, but I say to them, don't spend hundreds of thousands, do your first one. If you were doing your first buy-to-let, learn the process, because when they're going through their first buy-to-let mortgage or a bridging product, all that stuff, that's a headache for sports when the first time they do it. So I said, look, learn, I'm going to help you with it, and I help one of our USPs is we go above and beyond. So I'm there sometimes at 10 at night helping people fill out a form, but that's the things I'll do because that's what I'm prepared to do for them. But that's the thing I say to them, don't get too excited about buying 10 all at once, do it one-on-one, get better.
It's a really good thing what you're doing. I mean, it's similar to me, because I think that I've seen a lot of very good people making serious money, and then they're pushing boxes in Sainsbury's 2 years later, and it's sad. So I think what you're doing is a really good niche.
Yeah, it's don't run before you can walk. And I think I say to them, now we've got some guys who are on their 2nd and 3rd property with us, etc. Now they're thinking, oh, I'm ramping up because I understand how it works. I understand what it's like to be in a refurb. I understand what it's like for something to cost a bit more on a refurb. You know, understand extras. They understand, oh, this one let in the first day, this one let on in a week. All that stuff you learn that you have to experience it. You don't know until you experience it. And it's so easy to see top line figures in property and think, oh, that's easy. Trust me, when you buy them, properties can take 2 or 3 months to buy. Even when you're really fast and things and you're trying to be fast, sometimes lenders can be a pain.
I think that you can't learn all there is to know by like reading books and stuff. It will begin to open your eyes, but you've got to actually do it. But at the same time, don't do it until you have read the books and got the education, because then you could end up making big mistakes. What advice would you give to someone that was weighing up whether to come to the crash course? What would your advice be?
I think everything we spoke about was about education and taking action. And I think the first step is, of course, if someone's interested in something like property, they're just starting to learn about different inspirational people, etc. But you've got to go and do it. You've got to start. You have to start somewhere. And I think going out and meeting these people, you'll see people on different levels of their journey. Some just starting out, like will be like most people. Some are on their first 1 or 2. Some are 10, 20, 30. There's still things to learn, and there's nothing better than learning together. There's normally a positive vibe on all of, you know, for yourself, bringing that positivity and a bit of inspiration as well. You know, if you want to do well in anything, you've got to have that tenacity and you've got to have that ambition to really grow something. I think sometimes being around people who are doing something, there's nothing better. It's like Robert Kiyosaki and all of them saying, you become the 5 people you spend most time with. Well, you want to be with people, if that's your goal to grow, so you want to be with people who are doing it. I'm
sure when you came to the crash course, there was only about 50 people there.
It could have been,
back in the it wasn't like now.
I was crewing on the first one.
I remember saying, take some pictures for me.
So there's things like that happening. So, you know, it's amazing how things change. And as I said, I didn't go very fast, you know, in my portfolio. So sometimes I like to bring the tone down and say, look, you can go at your own speed. Some people are 120%, they're going, and some do really well, some actually stretch themselves too far and you see they go to negative. Mine was actually more of a slower journey, and only now am I starting to ramp it up more. But even now, even though I'm full-time, it's not stretching myself to too much. We're still going at our own pace, and hopefully, and maybe in year 2, you're saying, oh, I can go a bit faster now. I know I've done these 20 products. You're doing it
steadily, you're looking at your mistakes as you're going, and you're going with people. There's a saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Exactly. And the fact that we're sat right now, we're still friends, you know, you're doing great. Dude, I really appreciate you coming on. No, thank you ever so much. Great to see you doing well.
Cheers.